Bum, 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 bum. Suppose I'd better make a video. It's been a few weeks. Oh, for goodness sake. Is it any wonder I get nothing done in here? Oh, nice one. Right, Army Armament R85A2. Where did I get to? Oh aye, I gave it a look over out the box to see what was faulty. Remember, this was bought as a customer returned gun, and I fully stripped it down to see if anything else was lurking. That allowed me to give it a good comparison to the pre-ETU G&G model that this is cloned from, and make a disassembly reference video that might be useful to someone in the future. Probably not. As far as I can tell, this rifle was returned solely because the gas block fell off, and that's because it's held on with only one grub screw, as opposed to G&G's more secure roll pin. And because the handguard is secured on the gas block, that allows the entire front end just to fall off. The sling loop and bolt that secures the handguard on this one was lost prior to me receiving it. That was a bit of a nuisance, but no matter, it's all sorted. Roll the video. The front gas block is now on nice and solid. I fitted 2 extra grub screws, one here and one here, in addition to the one underneath, the factory one. Those holes were already there on the gas block, as you'll be able to see in the previous video. They just needed an M3 tap ran down them and the grub screws went in fine. I have absolutely no doubt if it took a big enough hit that it might move. But that's no different from most other AEGs on the market. It's actually very solid, so it's good enough for now. Long term, I might epoxy resin this piece on, but as I say, that will do for now. For the loose front end, we also fitted a real SA80 front sling loop. It was actually cheaper and easier to get actually in stock than the Airsoft equivalents. Now the dimension across here is slightly thicker, so we had to drill out there, and I think I just went through with a 12mm drill bit, and the bolt head is also a little wider, so I went down there, but you don't go all the way through on this one because it needs that chamfer to catch the bolt head, and it simply goes together in this order. Sling loop on this side, then you push this spacer through, and then the bolt, and that all goes through the front gas block. Now my spacer was actually rattling around in the box, but if yours is missing, it is a piece of tube approximately 12.5mm long, 9mm external diameter, and the internal diameter just needs to be enough for the sling loop bolt to go through, but for reference it's round about 6.5mm internal diameter. That got the front end fixed pretty well, absolutely solid, just leaving a little bit of play at the back. These square holes here that locate onto the square pegs on the front trunnion down here. The pegs are smaller than the holes, so it allows it just a little bit of rattle up and down and side to side. And that's a bit shit. That play at the back of the handguard just shouldn't have been allowed to happen. You expect issues with a budget-friendly brand like Army Armament, but that's no excuse to allow issues like these to come through. Issues that could be easily avoided in the first place. Now, there's lots of different ways this could be fixed, and I suppose the best way, the cleanest way, would be to take the plate off the back of the handguard and just make up a new one with smaller holes. But I don't have the time to f*** about with that. I need something quick, something easy, and something that will just make it all solid, because there's nothing worse than a floppy front end. You need to have a good grip. What the f*** am I doing? Anyway, if only I had some way to pack those holes out. Something inexpensive and easy to work, but also durable and ready to hand.
Oh yes. So there you go, front end fixed and absolutely solid for next to no outlay. Just the price of a sling loop and bolt, and that wouldn't even have been required if mines had came with one. And of course the price of a beer. Or 3. Right, so maybe this has been a bit light-hearted, but the metal used in tin cans is good quality and consistently thicknessed material. Excellent for shims. It's roughly 1/10 of a millimetre or 4th thou in old money thick, and I've actually used it successfully in a lot of projects over the years, not just airsoft. The irony is, longer term I'll probably be taking that rail off and putting the plastic front end, because as I mentioned in the last video, this gun is far more A1 than A2. But for the time being, that will allow me to attach cameras and accessories as required.
My name is Jeff.
Anyway, just a few other pointers about these Army Armament R85s as they come out the box. The safety catch has problems. Roll it.
So the safety catch, these have a habit of jamming. What happens is there's been too much travel allowed by this cutout here, and it can push all the way through like that, and then the spring pressure from this spring here pushing up causes it to jam here, and you can see where the metal has been rubbing and it doesn't come back through. So you can push back down here and then it comes through. So let's see what we can do with it. First you have to remove the grub screw in here that blocks the trigger. It's a small M3 grub screw and it's a little bit short. It still allows some trigger movement, so I'm going to replace that long term with a 3 or 4 millimeter longer one, just to make sure the trigger is really safe. Then once the grub screw is out, you push down the retaining spring, which also gives the position stops, and out it comes. And there's the metal wear from the over travel. Now there is a burr there is a sharp edge, so my thinking is I can soften that sharp edge with a file, so that if it does go too far, it'll be easier for it to come back through. And also I'm going to sharpen this groove here on this side, so that when the spring does lock into there, it doesn't really want to easily pop back through, and hopefully that'll be enough. We could block the travel by putting a spacer on this side of the grub screw, and that'll work, but just for now I want to try this simpler solution first. So I'm just going to use these needle files to do the little bit of reshaping. So first we'll take that burr off and gently round the edge there, but let's see how we get on. That's a lot less likely to jam now. Hopefully that'll do the trick. And we'll take this second groove here with a sharper file. So I want to try and square off the back edge of the groove. So I don't want it rounded at all, so that when the spring goes in there, it's a lot harder for it to pop through and let the lever over travel. So using the sharp edged file, just try and reshape that slightly, still keeping it smooth on this side so that the spring can pop back out. You can see there what I'm trying to achieve. So we'll pop that back in and give it a try. Pop the spring back over. So it does locate fine. A bit more positively into the safe position. It will still over travel if pushed too hard, like so. But because we've rounded off the area down there, pushes back through. So long term I'll come back to limiting the travel so that it simply can't go too far, but for now that is fine.
The hop up, apart from being a fairly basic unit, suffers in a lot of cases from a fairly bizarre problem.
The hop up was lacking the retaining star clip on the axle here, so whenever you adjusted it, this cog would just pop out. I've spoke to some other owners of the R85 and some say they had the clips and some say they didn't, so whoever was assembling the hop-up chambers on that day must have been half asleep. However, it's easily sorted by just replacing the clip from either a spare hop-up, or I think you can buy these on eBay. I think they're called star clips, I can't quite remember. and you just push that on and job done.
Oh. Don't mind if I do. The air nozzle.
The air nozzle, I mentioned in the previous video that there is no O-ring in there. There is, however, a groove as if it could take an O-ring, so I tried an O-ring from an old nozzle and it did fit in there perfectly, and it ran up and down on the cylinder head just fine. However, I want to rebuild this exactly as it came, and most people are saying that theirs do not have O-rings, so I won't be fitting one just now on the initial rebuild.
Don't worry, we're getting to the end, thankfully, because I'm getting a bit tipsy. When I done the strip down video, I didn't do a reassembly because I thought that the old reassembly is the reverse of that shown would apply, but then I remembered there is one thing in particular that will make life easier: gear positioning. It can sometimes be quite difficult to get the top half of the gearbox back on if the gears are out of position. You want to position the gears like this so that the piston isn't fouling on the gears and that the tappet plate isn't fouling on its cam. This lets the top of the gearbox go on no problem. While on the subject of the gearbox, the consensus from people who have also bought these seems to show that they are very poorly shimmed, mostly on the tight side, and mine's is no exception. But again, in keeping with my approach so far, I have put it back together as it came, since it's still cycled and fired. Finally, and quite important for UK airsofters, these come firing a bit hot. This one was firing about 400 FPS on a 0.2 gram BB, that's about 1.5 joules. The UK limit for an airsoft replica capable of firing fully auto is 1.3 joules, so that's a bit cheeky, and really they probably shouldn't have been sold. Fortunately, it's quick and easy to change the springs in these, so by trying a few of my random spares, I got it shooting at 345 FPS on a 0.2 gram BB. That's around 1.1 joules, so it keeps it within the UK legal limit, and it keeps it safe for most UK sites. Anyway, that's the gun back together and solid. So far I've noticed some of the classic semi-auto lockup issues that these suffer from, as well as the pre-ETU G&G models, but it's going to need a bit more testing to find out what's going on, and that's what I'll be concentrating on next. This is why I haven't modified the gun so far. I want to keep it as close to factory as possible so that I can hopefully fix the semi-auto issues that plague these guns. I'll think about modifications or upgrades once I have the base rifle working well. Ugh, man, I'm struggling to talk. Fucking too can-dan these days. Right, long boring video, but that's me about up to date with where this project is at. If by some miracle you're still watching at this point, maybe hit the like button, maybe even subscribe to the channel. It's free. I upload new videos every couple of months. But until next time, take it easy and I'll catch you in the next one.
So first you have to remove the grub screw that blocks the trigger with the right size Allen key. You have to remove the, still the wrong f***ing size.
Jesus man, I'm pissed. In the seller's slight defence, these may have been ordered in before the new rules came in that these suffer from, as well as the pre-ETU G&G models. That's hard to say when you're drinking, man.